Now, okay, so we're in Photoshop, and you've used this before in Year 8, so it shouldn't be a big issue. Down the left-hand side, you've got Tools, and if you see a little triangle in the corner of the tool, if you can't find the tool you need, if you click on that triangle, you've sometimes got different choices, okay, that you can change the tool over with. So hovering over the tool is a good way of finding out what it does, because if you hover there long enough, it comes up with what it is, okay? That's an interesting and useful feature. Down here on the bottom right-hand side, you have your layers palette. So when you think about Photoshop, you think about layers. So if you can't see something, sometimes it's because something else is on top of it, okay? And you might need to either make it more transparent or change the order of the layers or create a mask to remove a section of the image. All those things are things that you can do within Photoshop. Now, your painting, your completed painting is going to be an A3 size image. So what we're going to do is we're going to go up here to the File tab, click File and New. And what we're going to do is it says International Paper Size here. If it doesn't, you might need to actually find International Paper Size. Then you're going to go to here to A3 size, which is there. And we're going to set our resolution to 300, because when you print an image, 300 is a good size, like type of resolution. Resolution is the number of dots per square inch that you've got, the DPI, and it just means that it won't get too pixelated when you blow it up, okay? If it's too much larger than that, you don't make it 1,000,000 because... Why wouldn't I make it higher, make the resolution even better? No, it'll actually get better. It'll actually get more resolution. Yeah, you get more and more. And I could put 700 on there. Why don't I put 700? No, it looked good. Could be, yeah, gives you, yeah, but you could like, it'll give you crisper detail, but the biggest problem is it'll make the file size cumbersome. The file gets bigger as well, and in a Photoshop file, because you're saving layers, it gets very large. And then what happens to your computer?
It gets really slow, it gets really bad.
It does. I've had students save an image that was like 1 kilometre by 1 kilometre. I won't mention any names. And that person that saved that image, I was wondering why the computer kept crashing, was because it couldn't save enough information to make the image happen. So that's why you need to worry about image size and image resolution and not make it too high. 300, good rule of thumb. Okay? So we go OK. And that's your image. Now, if you want to change that layout, the orientation, because it's most likely going to be a landscape orientation. It doesn't have to be. Some people did it portrait style, but you can actually rotate the image. You go Image, Rotation, and then you just rotate it clockwise or anti-clockwise 90 degrees. So that's our image there. A3 image, and that's where we need to put our photograph if we're going to play with it, okay? Now I'm going to open up the actual image. So I'm going to find that image. So I'm going to say File, and instead of saying New this time, I'm going to say Open. And I'm going to find the image that I saved on my desktop called Messy Room, which is a JPEG, and I'm going to open it. That's the image of the messy room, okay? Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to select all. Now, if you go up to Select on the page and hit Select, there's actually a shortcut for that command. Can you see how it's Command A? It'll be still Select, I think. It should still be the same. If it's not, we'll look for it, okay? These shortcuts might be different, okay? That's why I don't very often use shortcuts, because my brain doesn't work that way. So I'm going to go All, and as soon as you do that, see the marching ants around the outside? That means your image is selected. Then I'm going to go Edit, and I'm going to copy, not cut, because I don't want to destroy my original. Then up the top here, you've got your actual A3 image that you're going to be putting this onto, okay, the one we created at the beginning. So that's where it went to. It didn't disappear, it's just on this tab up the top here, okay? So I should have actually saved that with a better name than Untitled, but I can rename it when I save it later, okay? So I'm going to click on it, there it is there. Then I'm going to go Edit, and I'm going to Paste. Now I don't know what size this image is, so I don't know what's going to happen. Okay. So it's quite a bit smaller than the A3. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click this one, which is called move, and I'm going to move it up into the corner of this image, okay? Then I need to actually stretch this out so it fills the image, okay? What I can do to do that is I go Edit, Free Transform, very good. And if I drag this corner out, it will come out, but as you can see, I can change the proportions as well, which you might not want to do. But if you hold down Shift key while you're dragging, it'll stay in proportion and you won't have to worry about ruining your proportion. Now, don't worry about the fact that it's pixelated. It does that when you're doing the free transform. Now, as you can see, if I wanted to keep this in proportion, I'm going to have an issue with, what's happened now? Yeah, I stuffed it up. Okay. Okay, because you can't drag it over the edge. Okay, so what I would need to do with this image, if I really wanted to make my life easy, is I would have to crop it so proportionately it would be more like the size that I require. Or the other option would be I would drag it sort of down here and try and extend some of this detail down into the bottom of the canvas. Okay, they're the two things that I could do. I was wondering, can I drag this? I always thought I could drag this over the edge.
You can. You're not in free transform.
Oh, I've come out of it, have I?
Yeah, you're in perspective.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
So let's just, I'll get Enter. Okay, I'm going to go Edit Free Transform again. That's Free Transform. I'm going to drag it up into the corner again. And see, what I can do is, if we're right, I can drag this out. Yeah, you're right. And see, I can actually drag this and move this until I'm happy with the composition, okay? And it's still in proportion, okay? So that's one method of moving the image if it's bigger. And that's done. I've stuffed it up a little bit down the bottom, but you get the drift, okay? So if you want to, in Free Transform, you can also do the straighten up as well. So that's your image now, and you've got a background layer, and you know it's A3 size, and that's all happening, okay? Now we can add adjustment layers, okay? Now the adjustment layers are, you go up here to Layer, okay, because you're putting an adjustment layer in, and you go New Adjustment Layer, and you go Levels. Okay, so what this is going to do is, see the sliders here, this is called a histogram. The one on the left is the darks, okay? The one on the right is the light. So if I drag the one on the left across, it'll increase contrast in the image, okay? And if I drag the one on the right, it'll increase highlights. So you can play around with that, okay? And then hit Enter, and that's done. Now what I can do is, if you look down here, if you look down in the Layers palette, can you see that new layer there now that says Levels? If I switch that eye off, watch what happens. So that's a way of seeing what's happened with that change, okay? If you didn't like the change, you could grab that layer and you could just drag it and drop it into this trash bin over here, okay? So that's a way of getting rid of an adjustment layer that you don't like, okay? So that's my levels adjustment. Then I could go Layer, New Adjustment Layer, and I could go Hue and Saturation. And what happens with this is you've got a master, and you can, if I want to just do all the colors, I would leave it on master, and I could move the saturation lever across to the right, and it'll make the colors deeper and richer. Okay, if I go ridiculously, it becomes like psychedelic. But you can see that like reds get redder and greens get greener, and you can play around with lightness. If it's a bit underdone, you can play around with the actual lightness of the image. And you can even, if you wanted to change colors, you could play around with hue and make it ridiculously psychedelic, okay? And then if you had like one color that you really wanted to make, you know, pop out, so say the blues, okay? I could go to blues, okay? And then I could go ramp up the saturation on the blues, and it only does the blues in the image then, Okay, so if I wanted to play around with the color, I could do it as well. Once I'm happy with that, I now have my levels which I had off, and so if I want to look at what saturation does, I can do that. Okay, and then the last thing is filters, which is, I think, I'm going to find where that is. I think it's in edit. Image, filter. Okay, you've got a whole lot of filters that you can play around with, and you can basically, the sky's the limit with it. But there's where is the one I wanted to do? Blur. I'm looking for the artistic filters. Stylize. Extrude. Solarize. Okay, you go to filter gallery, and up here you've got artistic filters. Now, if you wanted to make it look like a painting, for instance, okay, you can actually go to paint daubs is one you can use. So if I go to paint daubs and go, and then you can actually play around with the brush size and all that sort of stuff. And you go, okay, did it do anything at all? Yes?
I have a number of photos. Do I need to choose one that I'm
Yes. And you can play around with a few of them. You can actually take a few of them into the thing and play around with them. Now that didn't do a hell of a lot. It did do a bit.
cancel and then go to the layer that you added and press like the bar on
No, that was hue and saturation. I don't think it does it as an adjustment layer, unfortunately. So we'll go edit undo. Let's have a look. Can we do that? No. Let's go history. Let's go to the history window and go, where's history? History. Okay. This will let me go. See how I've gone filter gallery. I don't know if I've actually applied those changes. We'll go here to modify hue saturation. Yeah, I did make a change. Filter gallery. Oh, it's taking a little while, that's why. So if I was to go, paint tools. Doesn't seem to be doing anything. I might have to have a look at how to do that, actually, because I don't think I'm... Because if you go up here to filter and you apply one of the other filters, like blur, for instance, you can actually play around with, blurring it a little bit. Blur is actually a good way to get rid of detail too. It's a little bit less intrusive than the artistic filters, but we will have a look at how to do that. So if I go blur, is it doing anything at all? Let's go blur more. Actually, we can go filter. If you go to blur and then Gaussian blur, you can actually play around with the actual how much you blur it. And it's taking a little while for that preview to appear, which is really annoying. But you can play around with changing this radius here. I'm going to go right up and see if it does anything. I wonder why it's not letting me do anything. Oh, you know why it's not doing anything? You tell me. No, it's because I'm on the hue saturation layer. I'm not on the layer that has the image, maybe. So we go now, let's try it again. That's why I wasn't getting a preview, because So if I go camera gallery this time, where are we? Yeah, filter gallery, and we go. See how we got. That's in the on the paint daubs, and see how I've gone brush size ridiculously high. If I wind that back down, see what's happening? So you need to make sure you select the right layer, okay? And then we go okay. It will, over time, play around with the detail in that image, okay? And I probably didn't do enough there. If I go Gaussian blur, let's do that one. Filter, and we'll go blur. We'll go Gaussian blur. And watch what happens. See how ridiculously blurry that is? Okay, now do you want to blur it that much? I don't think so. But you can wind it back down. Watch what happens as you wind it back down. You can wind it up and get it more and more out of focus. So if you're trying to just paint with daubs of paint, that could be easier than having detail and painting things, okay? So it comes down to, and you know what? If you have one picture that's sharp detail and one picture that's like this, you could paint the whole painting like this, and then you could get the detailed painting, and you could use it to pick out targets of detail that you think need to be improved on, yeah? So that would be an approach that you could apply to this image, and to this is using it as a tool, okay? If I go okay with that.
So when we do our still life, are we allowed to be flexible? Like we can do like lots of detail if we wanted to, but we could do like giant, like blocking out the color.
It comes down to how good it is as a finished work of art. So quite often you will find that artworks will have areas that are less in focus and areas that have more detail. It has to look right, but by the same token, you don't have to have detail everywhere. Or if you wanted to go photorealistic, you'd try and get everything, you know. So it depends on your approach, okay? I wish I could give you the right answer for like how do you create a perfect artwork, because hey, if there was a formula for it, you know, everyone would just do the formula and be a great artist. Okay, any questions about that? I'll see how long this video is and I'll try and upload it, okay? Hopefully I still get 15